Started. How's it going, Tony?
It's going great.
All right, let's go over the teams briefly. You're going to give us a quick overview of each one. Of course, I think a lot of people are still in shock about Golden State getting hammered last night. But yeah, just give us an overview of what you've been thinking about for each team.
Well, to start with Golden State, they're a little undersized. They don't have the bench that they did last season. That's going to be a matchup problem possibly down the line, especially if you got Kevin Durant as your center, most likely. You're going to have to work David Weston as a center. You're going to have to do a lot of rotation in that area. The Cleveland Cavaliers were able to bring in Mike Dunleavy. That was a nice addition. They brought J.R. Smith back, and the Birdman is back there. Cleveland clearly going to be the favorites in the Eastern Division this year. I really like San Antonio this year. Tim Duncan goes ahead and retires. He's replaced by Paul Gasol. Gasol is going to be a major liability defensively, but they are going to be able to switch him out when needed. This could be Tony Parker's last season as well. He does look considerably slow. Manu Ginobili also most likely his last season this year. Not much changing with the Toronto Raptors. I think it's still going to be a very good team, but I don't see them going anywhere in the postseason. They'll be missing Big Mac Bamoya. Pronounce that name twice. He was a big man last season for the Toronto Raptors. They got Jared Sullinger to replace him, but Sullinger is going to be out at least a month with a injured foot. The LA Clippers finished 53 and 29 last season. They are a great regular season team, but overall they just don't have enough pieces on the bench and enough camaraderie to do anything in the postseason. I don't see them going anywhere in the Western Division. The Boston Celtics finished 48 and 34 last season. They got rid of Jared Sullinger and were able to add Al Horford to the mix. He is going to be a nice little upgrade for the Boston Celtics, I believe. They're going to be a very strong contender. I think they might even take over Toronto's spot in the Eastern Division. Big surprise
All right.
last year was the Portland Trail Blazers with Damian Lillard. He's just an absolute animal. The guy is just so talented. CJ McCullough really took on a big role for that team as well. They're going to be a very strong contender. I could see them around a 6 seed this season. The Pacers making changes as they always do. Jeff Teague taking over for George Hill at the point. They're going to try and run a more up-tempo offense. It's going to be a very interesting team to watch out of the gate. That's the team that I like to wait 2 or 3 weeks to see what rotations are going to look like. The Atlanta Hawks go ahead and go out and get Dwight Howard this offseason. He's going to be taking that Al Horford position. They're going to have him on a minutes restriction throughout the season, it looks like. That's going to be something very interesting to watch. And a team that I undervalued going into last night, no doubt about it, was the Utah Jazz. They finished 40 and 42 last year. They added Joe Johnson in the offseason. I got to say, they are really talented at a lot of different positions. They got George Hill to run the point as well. The biggest decrease for a team in the Western Conference is the Oklahoma City Thunder. They were at 55 and 27 last year, but that was with Kevin Durant. He's no longer going to be there. Oladipo, formerly from the Orlando Magic, takes over his position. That's going to be a sizable difference. They're looking at possibly an 8 seed. They might not even make it this offseason. Not a big fan of their bench, honestly. Detroit Pistons, 44 and 38 last season. Reggie Jackson is out for the first month of the season. Ish Smith is going to fill in for his position for the first month of the year. Overall, I like this team. I think they could be a 6 seed. I think they're going to need another season of meshing well together. I like Stan Van Gundy as the head coach over there. The Memphis Grizzlies, I don't see them going anywhere. They signed Chandler Parsons to a big contract. He's going to be out for a while. Zach Randolph moves full-time to the bench. They want to run a more up-tempo offense, giving Mike Connolly all that money in the offseason. It's going to be interesting to see if they're probably fluttering right under 500 this season. The Chicago Cubs, you got baseball in my head. The Chicago Bulls finished at 42-40 last season. Major changes over in Chicago this year. Rajon Rondo is now running the point. Dwayne Wade is also added to the mix to go along with Michael Carter Williams, who's going to need the ball in order to run up and down the court with Jimmy Butler. That's going to be an interesting team to watch. I would not bet on that team for the first 2 weeks. That's a good watch team right there. The Dallas Mavericks finished at 42-40 last season. They bring in two former Golden State Warriors, Andrew Bogut and Harrison Barnes. The question is at the point guard to see if any of them can actually stay healthy. Had 3 point guards last year. None of them were able to stay on the court significantly. Biggest increase on the Western Division, I think, is going to be the Minnesota Timberwolves, finishing it at 29-53 last year. They go ahead and get one of my favorite head coaches, Tom Thibodeau, bringing him in. They drafted Chris Dunn, who looks like he's going to be fighting for minutes throughout the season. And Ricky Rubio, don't doubt it for 3 seconds, he's going to be on the trade block by the All-Star break. My sad and depressing New York Knicks last year. What an absolute disaster to the season last night. Courtney Lee couldn't make a shot. They have no bench. Derrick Rose has to stay healthy. He looked pretty good last night, but there's going to be a lot of issues getting all those guys on the court at the same time to mesh together. The Washington Wizards finished at 500 last year at 41-41. New head coach in Scott Brooks. There's a question whether or not John Wall and Bradley Beal can mesh together. There is talent on that team, so if there is anybody who can get the best out of that talent, it's going to be Scott Brooks. That's going to be a very iffy team out of the gate, that's for sure. Charlotte Hornets going ahead and bringing back Kid Gilchrist after an injury. They lost him for an injury. They no longer have Jeremy Lin, no more Courtney Lee, and no more Al Jefferson. 3 big pieces to that team, so I could see them taking a big step back this year. Michael Jordan's going to be crying quite a bit if he keeps on watching those games with that roster. Very interesting to see the Houston Rockets. They finished up at 41-41 last year. They added Ryan Anderson, a nice deep threat, pick and pop guy who plays power forward, and Eric Gordon. He's already on the injury concern list. Patrick Beverley already out up to 20 games at the point guard. He's a great defender, but Mike D'Antoni does not know how to spell defense, doesn't know what defense is. Going to be interesting to see what they are able to do. As we take a look at the Orlando Magic, some significant changes. I actually kind of like the roster they're starting to piece together. Frank Vogel takes over. They bring in Serge Ibaka, who's going to be the power forward. And I like this team. I like what they're doing. Point guard has been a question, so they brought in a couple of different options to compete with the starter in that one. Miami Heat, no doubt about it. They're not making the playoffs this season. No Dwayne Wade, no Chris Bosh. Dragic is going to have to be a major contributor in this one. And for me, he is a B to C level point guard in this league. Whiteside gets a big paycheck. He's going to be relied on heavily throughout the season to be a go-to man. Denver Nuggets, they actually do have quite a bit of talent, but you just never know what they're going to do. Danilo Gallinari is unfortunately the leader of this team, and when Danilo Gallinari is the leader of your team, you are a few years off from competing. That's going to be right around a 500 team. They got some depth coming off the bench. Look for Kenneth Faried to probably get traded by midseason. The Milwaukee Bucks are just a mishmash of talent. Jason Kidd has full control of that roster, bringing in Tony Snell with that trade from the Chicago Bulls in the offseason. That was the Greek Freak is going to be their biggest contributor this season. New Orleans Pelicans somehow found a way to win 30 games with all those injuries last year. Anthony Davis already a little banged up with that ankle. He is going to be the main contributor. If he can play at least 70 games, this team will win under 25 games this season. The Sacramento Kings, an absolute nuclear disaster. They can't pick one coach. They can't come up with an offensive plan. Once they fired Mike Malone, it was over. DeMarcus Cousins was very happy when he was there. Now, not so much. So we're going to take a look and see. They're ranked, in my rankings, they're ranked right at the bottom of the list this year at the Sacramento Kings. Phoenix Suns finished a dismal 25-59 last year. Devin Booker did show a lot of great potential. Brandon Knight and Tyson Chandler, two aging veterans. Knight is going to be the sixth man off the bench, running the point and shooting guard most likely, but they really need to figure out who's going to stay, who's going to go. They're in for major issues this year. The Philadelphia 76ers at 10-72 last year. Ben Simmons looks like he could be out for the entire season already. That could be a major issue. Noah Noel already has a minor, quote-unquote, knee injury. He's going to be out for quite a while. They are fully loaded in the backcourt, but they're going to have a minutes restrictions on all their bigs. So it'll be interesting to see what they do there. If you're looking for a fantasy perspective on that one, I would steer clear until they sort itself out through the first 3 weeks. You have your LA Lakers, 17-65 last season. They go ahead and go out and get two big-time veterans in Luol Deng and Timothy Mozgov to mix with the younger crowd. I like this team. Kobe Bryant destroyed the ability for these players to grow in the offseason. He's no longer going to be there, so it's going to be a very interesting mix. And then we rounded out with the Brooklyn Nets, who finished at 21-61, just an absolute nuclear disaster in Brooklyn. You have Jeremy Lin running the point. For some crazy reason, they're talking about trading off Brook Lopez, the only talent they actually have on this roster. If they do that, it's going to be major issues in Brooklyn this season. And that's my roundup of all 30.
All right. Well, thanks for the roundup. All right. Well, let's get into today's games. I think before we went on, we were talking about Heat and Magic, and I think you were favoring the Magic to beat the Heat. Are you looking at game, half, quarter?
Well, when we take a look for the Orlando Magic, it's -3.5, laying 105 for the full game. The half, which I like, a lot of value at -2, even money at 100 right there. And the first quarter is -1 at -110. So for me, the half and the quarter are going to be my two biggest interests in that game. I like both positions in that one.
Okay. And for the game, do you think that the Celtics can cover 11 points, or is that just kind of, I think it even started at 10. So it's already at 11. Let's see. First half is -6.5.
Yeah.
Quarters -4. What about the Nets?
Last season, the Brooklyn Nets did show up in the games that you would not expect them to be playing. I like Boston as a nice leg and a teaser tonight. Am I going to lay the 11 for the full game? No, I'm probably not going to lay the 11 for the full game. First quarter is +4 for Brooklyn, -115. So the book is expecting Brooklyn to come out and cover the first quarter. But I do like the half. The half is going to be my strongest position in this one. -6.5 for the Boston Celtics. That's going to be my play right there.
Okay, great. What about the Nuggets and the Pelicans? Are you looking at anything there? Let's see on the game. We got a +1 Nuggets, -1 Pelicans.
Pelicans were a difficult team for me last year, but for the two reasons I told you earlier, Eric Gordon no longer there, along with Ryan Anderson. Both went to the Houston Rockets in the offseason, so that outside shot's not going to be there. If you look at the lineup for the Pelicans, they're very depleted. Denver has, not only do they have depth, but they have very young talent. So I'm going to take a look, and I like in this one, I'm going to play the half in this one at a pick'em, plus even money right there on the Denver Nuggets. That's going to be my play on that one.
Okay, and then we got another one with the big spread. We got Thunder against 76ers plus 9.5. Let's see, at half, you get 5 points for half, -5, Oklahoma on the half. Like anything there?
Yeah, I like the half. I like the -5. You do have to lay a little bit of juice at -115, but 9.5, the first game out on the road. I don't want to be laying that many points with a team that already lost their biggest star and is reworking their roster. So I'm going to stick with the half in that one. And I might take a look at the first quarter -3.5 as well.
Okay, great. Any other games you're looking at today? I think you said you're going to stay away from Lakers, Rockets, and Dallas Pacers. Going to stay away from those. Anything else that looks interesting today?
I was very surprised to see the Lakers home getting 3 points, laying 115 on the juice line. So they're expecting the Lakers to really fight it out in that one. I might put that on a teaser leg, actually. I'm debating. Still a lot of time left here today.
Well, it's +3 on halftime and game
Yeah.
+6.
Yeah, +6. So that would be pretty interesting if you tease the Lakers up. You got to realize Kobe's affected last season, completely depleted the ability for young guys to really step up. But I like some of that roster this season. Another game that I'm interested in is the Phoenix Suns first half, -1.5 over the Kings. Let's be honest, Boogie Cousins over in Sacramento, extremely talented guy, but beyond that, there's issues in the locker room. I don't like this coach. So I'm going to be steering clear of the Sacramento Kings throughout the season this year. The Charlotte Hornets and the Milwaukee Bucks game is going to be what I like to call a watch game. I want to see how they divide up the minutes for this Milwaukee Bucks team and see how that goes throughout. I'm going to take a look at the Minnesota Timberwolves tonight, first half. I might be on him. Anytime I could go with Tom Thibodeau. He's got a defensive mindset. He instills defense. Yes, he does play some of his guys too much, but I would much rather have a defensive-minded coach than somebody, say, in Houston, like Mike D'Antoni, who just preaches run the ball up and down the court. If you score, that's great. If you give up a couple of points, oh, well, that's too bad. That's not the mindset I want if I'm going to be laying points.
All right, great. Yeah, good point. You need defense too. All right, and you mentioned teasers. Now, I don't really look at teasers with basketball. Is there a number that you're looking at in basketball? NFL, we're looking at 3s and 7s. Is there a number you're looking at basketball?
To me, it all depends. Well, first thing you have to do is evaluate the talent on each team. Then you have to see whether or not they're going to be home or away. If a team is on the road, I don't particularly like laying anything more than 7 or 7.5. If they're home and they're a very good team, I'll push it sometimes to 8, 8.5. Other than that, I mean, last year, obviously, Golden State Warriors were amazing. So were the Sacramento Kings, the San Antonio Spurs. But other than that, I like to break it down on a game-to-game basis. You also have to have a feel. This sport, more than any other sport, is I go with a feel. How much did they travel? How many minutes did they play? Did they rest the guys in the third and the fourth quarter? There's a lot of variables to me, more so than any other sport in the NBA.
All right, great. Okay, if we want to find you, how do we get up with you on Twitter?
Picking NBA AN MLB. That's my Twitter handle. Always the best way to find me is on Twitter.
All right, thanks a lot. And also check us out in Telegram. That's an app, and it also has a web app you can use in your browser. That's telegram.me/sportsbet. This is Theo Goodman from dgenbet.com. Thanks for listening. Give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and share this video. Talk to you soon.